Are you thinking about buying a home in 2025? Before you make that big investment, you'll want to know which cities to avoid. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 worst cities to buy a house in 2025, places where skyrocketing prices, declining job markets, high crime rates, or poor long-term value make homeownership a risky bet. Whether you're a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, this list could save you from making a costly mistake. From overinflated markets teetering on the edge of a bubble to cities grappling with economic decline or deteriorating infrastructure, we've analyzed real estate data, expert forecasts, and local trends to bring you the most up-to-date insights. If you're planning to buy property this year, don't skip this video. Your future financial stability might just depend on it. Let's dive in. Number 10. Miami, Florida. Miami may be known for its beaches, nightlife, and cultural flair, but when it comes to real estate in 2025, it's becoming an increasingly risky place to buy a home. Over the past few years, Miami has experienced a dramatic rise in housing prices, fueled by out-of-state buyers, investors, and remote workers looking for sun and tax advantages. However, that rapid growth has pushed affordability out of reach for many locals. Median home prices have outpaced income growth, and the cost of living continues to climb, making it one of the least affordable cities in the U.S. for working families and first-time buyers. Another major concern for Miami is the growing threat of climate change, specifically sea level rise and flooding. In recent years, parts of the city have seen more frequent sunny day floods, where high tides cause water to rise into streets even without a storm. These environmental challenges are beginning to impact property values, and insurance costs are skyrocketing. In 2025, many homeowners in flood-prone areas are either being dropped by insurers or facing steep premium hikes, adding significant hidden costs to homeownership. In addition to environmental and affordability issues, Miami's housing market may be teetering on the edge of overvaluation. Some analysts suggest that property prices have been artificially inflated by speculative buying and demand spikes during the pandemic. Now that interest rates are higher and the investor frenzy is cooling, there's growing concern that Miami could experience a price correction or stagnation, which could leave recent buyers with properties worth less than they paid. If you're looking to build long-term equity, this uncertain climate might be too volatile to bet on. Lastly, while Miami has a booming tourism sector and growing tech scene, the job market can still be unstable and heavily seasonal. Many of the high-paid jobs that drew buyers to the area in 2021-2022 have shifted elsewhere, and the income inequality gap continues to widen. Combined with limited inventory and increased cost burdens, Miami is starting to feel more like a speculative market than a sustainable one. For home buyers in 2025, it's a place that may look attractive on the surface, but hides deeper risks just below the waterline, literally and financially. Number 9. San Francisco, California. Once a symbol of booming tech prosperity and real estate gold, San Francisco has seen a sharp reversal in housing trends leading into 2025. The city's median home price, once soaring well above $1,500,000, has begun to cool, but not because affordability is improving. Rather, demand has significantly declined as remote work continues to enable tech workers and young professionals to leave the Bay Area in favor of more affordable cities. The exodus from San Francisco has led to softening home values, higher vacancies, and more homes lingering on the market longer than in past years. For prospective buyers, this means entering a market where values may still fall further, making equity growth uncertain. At the same time, the city is grappling with a worsening affordability crisis. Despite the recent price dips, housing in San Francisco remains among the most expensive in the country, especially when measured against the average income. Property taxes, maintenance costs, and mandatory seismic retrofitting in older buildings all contribute to the ongoing cost burden of owning a home here. With interest rates still elevated and inflation stretching household budgets, many buyers find themselves priced out, even as the local real estate market stagnates. This has created a strange paradox: high prices with decreasing demand, leading to a fragile, unstable housing environment Another major issue is the rising concern over livability and quality of life. San Francisco has long faced challenges with homelessness, drug use, and street cleanliness, but those problems have intensified in recent years and directly affect neighborhood desirability. Businesses have shuttered, office vacancy rates remain high, and tourism has yet to fully rebound. These quality of life issues are pushing even more residents out of the city, further softening the market and weakening the local tax base. For homeowners, that could mean reduced public services and longer-term value erosion in once coveted neighborhoods. Finally, the economic engine of the city, its tech sector, is no longer the unstoppable force it once was. With major layoffs from companies like Google, Meta, and Salesforce, and a general slowdown in startup funding, San Francisco's job market is looking less resilient than before. For home buyers banking on a high-paying tech job to support $1 million mortgage, the risk is real. The city's dependence on one primary industry means it's more vulnerable to shifts in that sector. When you combine uncertain job security, high ownership costs, and a cooling market, San Francisco starts to look more like a warning sign than a wise investment for 2025. Number 8. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has long been seen as a land of opportunity for real estate investors and home buyers looking for sunshine and affordability. But in 2025, the market tells a different story. After experiencing one of the fastest home price increases in the nation during the pandemic-era boom, Las Vegas is now facing a sharp correction. Home values surged well beyond what local incomes could support, driven by an influx of out-of-state buyers, especially from California, who were willing to pay above asking prices. However, with rising interest rates and the cooling investor demand, prices have begun to plateau or in some cases decline, raising red flags for potential buyers worried about purchasing at the peak. Another significant issue is economic volatility. While Las Vegas thrives on tourism, entertainment, and hospitality, those industries are incredibly sensitive to national economic shifts. In times of recession or inflation, travel slows, conventions get canceled, and jobs in the service sector dry up. Many residents are employed in hourly or commission-based work, which creates an unstable foundation for a strong housing market. This lack of economic diversity makes Las Vegas a risky bet for long-term homeownership, especially if you're relying on steady job growth and rising home values to build equity. Water scarcity is also becoming an increasingly urgent concern in southern Nevada. Lake Mead, the primary water source for the region, continues to shrink due to drought and overuse. In response, local governments have started implementing stricter water usage rules, especially for landscaping and new developments. These environmental constraints are beginning to impact the real estate market, with some developers scaling back projects or facing higher costs. Over time, these challenges may influence property values and desirability, particularly for suburban developments dependent on water-intensive infrastructure. Lastly, while Las Vegas once offered a relatively low cost of living, that's quickly changing. Home prices remain inflated relative to income, property taxes are climbing, and insurance costs are increasing, particularly for homes in areas more vulnerable to extreme heat and flash flooding. Many buyers who rushed into the market during the height of the boom now find themselves house poor, struggling to afford the true cost of ownership. For those considering buying in 2025, Las Vegas presents too many risk factors: economic instability, environmental strain, and a weakening real estate outlook to be considered a smart investment at this time. Number 7. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is rich in culture, history, and charm, but beneath its vibrant exterior lies a housing market fraught with long-term risks. In 2025, the city continues to struggle with aging infrastructure, weak economic growth, and unpredictable natural disasters, making it one of the least stable real estate markets in the country. Although home prices in New Orleans may appear relatively affordable compared to national averages, the hidden costs of ownership, like high insurance premiums, maintenance, and flood mitigation, can make buying a home here far more expensive than it seems on paper. These financial burdens often catch buyers off guard and can quickly turn a seemingly good deal into a money pit. Perhaps the most pressing concern for New Orleans homeowners is climate vulnerability. The city sits below sea level and is surrounded by water, making it one of the most at-risk cities in the U.S. for hurricanes, flooding, and sea level rise. In recent years, storm events like Hurricane Ida have caused billions in damage, and the insurance market is reacting. In 2025, property insurance rates in New Orleans are surging, or in some cases, policies are being dropped altogether. Many national insurers are pulling out of Louisiana, forcing residents to rely on the state's last resort options, which are significantly more expensive and offer less coverage. In addition to environmental risks, New Orleans is facing a shrinking population and slow job growth, both of which weaken the housing market. Since the pandemic, many residents have relocated to other parts of the South or Gulf Coast with stronger economies and better infrastructure. While tourism remains a vital industry, it does not provide the stable, high-wager jobs necessary to sustain long-term housing demand. As a result, some neighborhoods are seeing an increase in vacant properties, declining property values, and stalled development, factors that should raise concerns for any buyer considering a long-term investment in the area. Finally, buyers should consider the condition of the housing stock. Much of New Orleans' residential inventory is old, often predating modern building codes. While these historic homes add to the city's character, they also come with high maintenance costs and significant renovation needs. Mold, termite damage, and outdated electrical and plumbing systems are common, and upgrading these homes to modern standards can be both costly and time-consuming. For buyers looking for value, safety, and equity growth, New Orleans in 2025 presents more risks than rewards. Number 6. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit has long been a city of highs and lows, and in 2025, its housing market still reflects that uneven trajectory. While the city has made efforts at revitalization, particularly in downtown and midtown areas, many surrounding neighborhoods continue to struggle with economic stagnation, declining population, and widespread property neglect. Home prices in Detroit may be among the lowest in the country, but that affordability comes with significant trade-offs. Buyers lured by cheap listings often find themselves facing costly repairs, poor infrastructure, and limited community services that undermine the long-term value of their investment. One of Detroit's most persistent problems is urban blight. Thousands of vacant lots, abandoned homes, and crumbling buildings continue to scar large sections of the city. While some revitalization projects have made headway, the pace of redevelopment is slow and funding remains inconsistent. For home buyers, this means purchasing in areas where neighboring properties may remain vacant or deteriorating indefinitely, dragging down property values and making it difficult to resell. Even in neighborhoods with signs of improvement, the presence of blight can deter future development and limit appreciation potential. Another concern is economic instability. Although Detroit has diversified somewhat since its automotive decline, the city's job market still lacks strength and variety. Unemployment remains above the national average, and many jobs are concentrated in low-wage sectors. With a weak tax base, the city struggles to provide adequate public services, from policing and fire departments to road maintenance and public schools. These limitations impact the quality of life and reduce the overall appeal of homeownership, especially for families or long-term residents looking for stability and upward mobility. Finally, crime rates and public safety remain major barriers to Detroit's housing recovery. While some improvements have been made, Detroit consistently ranks among the cities with the highest violent crime rates in the country. For many would-be buyers, safety concerns are a deal-breaker, regardless of affordability. The combination of low home prices, high risk, and limited infrastructure improvements makes Detroit a challenging and potentially unrewarding place to buy a house in 2025. Unless you're an experienced investor with a high risk tolerance and long-term strategy, Detroit's market may not offer the security or return that most buyers are seeking. Number 5. Seattle, Washington. Seattle has long been known as a booming tech hub with a thriving economy and desirable quality of life, but in 2025, the housing market is showing signs of strain, making it an increasingly risky place to buy a home. After years of explosive growth driven by companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, the real estate market is finally cooling. Prices, which once skyrocketed far beyond national averages, are beginning to stagnate or even fall in some neighborhoods. Buyers who purchased at the peak may find themselves underwater, especially as interest rates remain elevated and demand begins to slow. A major concern for home buyers in Seattle is the affordability crisis. Despite a modest dip in prices, homes remain prohibitively expensive for most middle-income earners. The median home price still hovers near or above $800,000, 0 cents, while wages outside the tech sector have failed to keep pace. Property taxes, utilities, and ongoing maintenance costs continue to rise, making homeownership increasingly difficult to sustain. Even dual households often struggle to qualify for mortgages without stretching their budgets thin, leaving many buyers financially vulnerable to any economic disruption. Seattle is also facing softening demand in the rental and condo markets, particularly in urban cores. The widespread adoption of remote and hybrid work has pushed many residents to relocate to more affordable suburbs or entirely different cities, weakening the demand that once drove downtown real estate values. Office vacancy rates have risen sharply, and small businesses are still recovering from pandemic-era losses. These shifts have led to a decline in urban vibrancy and may result in long-term reductions in both commercial and residential property values in key areas of the city. Finally, local policy and taxation are adding additional pressures for homeowners. Seattle has introduced several new housing taxes and regulations intended to address homelessness and housing inequality, but those costs are increasingly being passed on to property owners. For example, high real estate excise taxes, increased capital gains taxes, and proposed rent controls all create uncertainty in the housing market. While the city's goals are well-intentioned, the effect is a more complex and expensive environment for homeowners and investors alike. In 2025, Seattle's market remains high-risk, with limited upside for new buyers and too many variables to ensure long-term value. Number 4. Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles has always been one of the most iconic and sought-after cities in the U.S., but in 2025 it's also one of the worst places to buy a home. The city's real estate market continues to suffer from extreme overvaluation, with median home prices still exceeding $900,000, 0 cents, in many neighborhoods, far outpacing the average income of most residents. Even as demand cools slightly due to higher mortgage rates, affordability remains out of reach for the majority of buyers. This imbalance between income and housing costs makes Los Angeles especially vulnerable to a housing correction or prolonged stagnation. A big part of the challenge lies in the cost of living, which remains one of the highest in the country. Property taxes, utility costs, and especially home insurance, driven up by increasing wildfire risk, have all become significantly more expensive. For buyers considering homeownership in 2025, these ongoing expenses can quickly eat away at household budgets. Moreover, many homes in the city require substantial upkeep, especially in older neighborhoods, adding thousands more per year in maintenance costs. For families and first-time buyers, LA presents a tough environment to build wealth through real estate. Los Angeles is also facing mounting quality-of-life challenges that are impacting property values and neighborhood desirability. Rising homelessness, worsening traffic congestion, and deteriorating public infrastructure have led to growing dissatisfaction among residents. Several businesses have relocated, crime rates have ticked up in certain areas, and many middle-income households are choosing to leave the city entirely. These issues have created uneven market conditions, where some neighborhoods see declines in property values while others remain artificially inflated by investor activity or foreign capital. Additionally, state and local regulations are contributing to market uncertainty. Strict zoning laws, environmental regulations, and complex permitting processes make new construction extremely difficult, limiting housing supply and pushing prices even higher. At the same time, new taxes targeting luxury properties and proposed rent control expansions are making investors wary, further distorting the housing landscape. In 2025, buying a home in Los Angeles means navigating a market where high costs, regulatory complexity, and socioeconomic strain combine to create significant financial risk, far more than most buyers bargained for. Number 3. Austin, Texas. Austin was once hailed as one of the best cities in America to buy a home thanks to its booming tech sector, vibrant culture, and relative affordability, but in 2025 that narrative has changed dramatically. After years of explosive growth, fueled by the influx of remote workers and major corporations like Tesla and Apple, the housing market is now showing signs of serious strain. Home prices skyrocketed more than 50% between 2020 and 2022, pushing the median well over $500,000, 0 cents, far outpacing local income levels. As a result, affordability has collapsed, and many buyers now face the risk of overpaying in a cooling market. The demand that once drove Austin's meteoric rise is beginning to level off, leaving behind a trail of inflated prices and growing inventory. With higher mortgage rates and waning interest from out-of-state buyers, homes are sitting on the market longer and price reductions are becoming more common. The market is transitioning from seller-friendly to uncertain, and new buyers may find themselves purchasing at or near the peak. Many experts believe Austin's real estate market is overvalued by as much as 30%, raising concerns about a possible correction that could erode home equity in the short to medium term. In addition to market dynamics, Austin is facing growing pains in its infrastructure and livability. Rapid growth has led to overcrowded schools, worsening traffic congestion, and strained utilities. Public transportation options remain limited, and road expansion hasn't kept up with population increases. These issues are beginning to impact quality of life, especially for families and commuters. At the same time, rising property taxes and homeowner insurance premiums are adding unexpected costs that make owning in Austin less financially appealing than it once was. Finally, Austin's job market is showing signs of vulnerability, especially in the tech sector that once fueled its boom. Recent layoffs and hiring freezes at major companies have dampened the optimism surrounding the city's economy. While Austin still has a strong cultural appeal and entrepreneurial spirit, its housing market in 2025 no longer offers the value or stability it once promised. For prospective homebuyers, this means taking on considerable risk in a city that may be headed for a painful market correction and a prolonged affordability crisis. Number 2. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix has long been touted as an affordable alternative to California and other expensive West Coast markets, attracting a flood of new residents over the last decade. However, by 2025, the city's real estate market is showing signs of serious stress and instability. After a rapid price surge during the pandemic years, home values have begun to slow significantly and, in some neighborhoods, are starting to decline. The once red-hot demand fueled by migration and low interest rates is cooling as mortgage rates rise and affordability worsens, leaving many buyers wary about entering a market that may no longer guarantee strong returns. One of the biggest underlying risks for Phoenix is water scarcity. Situated in the arid Southwest, Phoenix relies heavily on dwindling Colorado River supplies, and Lake Mead, the region's primary water source, is at historic lows. In 2025, the city faces increasingly stringent water restrictions which threaten to limit new development and place long-term pressure on existing properties. The reality of water shortages is beginning to factor into home values and buyer decisions, as sustainable living in Phoenix becomes more challenging and costly to maintain. Beyond environmental concerns, Phoenix's housing market is becoming increasingly saturated. The city built rapidly during the housing boom, leading to an oversupply of new homes, especially in suburban areas. Many of these homes are now sitting on the market longer, with sellers forced to lower prices or offer incentives to attract buyers. The combination of slower demand, rising borrowing costs, and an abundance of inventory has created a buyer's market, but one with little upward momentum, meaning home appreciation could stall or reverse in the near term. Finally, while Phoenix boasts a growing economy and population, income growth has not kept pace with rising housing costs, exacerbating affordability challenges. The city's job market, though diversified, includes many lower-wage positions in retail, hospitality, and construction, which limits how many residents can realistically afford home ownership. Rising property taxes, insurance premiums, and utility costs add to the financial burden. Taken together, these factors make Phoenix a risky bet for homebuyers in 2025, especially those looking for stable, long-term equity growth in their investments. Number 1. Boise, Idaho. Boise's rapid rise from a quiet city to one of the hottest real estate markets in the country has come with growing pains, and in 2025, it tops the list as the worst city to buy a house. What was once praised as an affordable alternative to costly West Coast metros has become a cautionary tale of overvaluation and speculative frenzy. Home prices in Boise surged by more than 70% over just a few years, driven largely by remote workers and investors chasing fast appreciation. But now, with rising interest rates and cooling demand, the market is correcting sharply, leaving many recent buyers at risk of losing significant equity. The biggest red flag for Boise is how detached the market has become from local incomes and economic fundamentals. Median home prices have skyrocketed to levels far beyond what most residents can reasonably afford. This price surge was fueled by a combination of low supply, high demand, and aggressive bidding wars, but the underlying wage growth and job market haven't kept pace. As a result, many homeowners are house-rich but cash-poor, facing large mortgages that strain their budgets and leave little room for economic shocks or unexpected expenses. Adding to the risk is Boise's relatively small and less diversified economy, which depends heavily on government jobs, education, and healthcare. Unlike larger metro areas with diverse industries, Boise's job market is more vulnerable to local budget cuts and economic slowdowns. When the housing market cools, fewer economic drivers exist to quickly support a rebound, increasing the chance of a prolonged price slump. For buyers hoping to build equity or find stable housing, this economic fragility presents a significant downside.
Finally, Boise's explosive growth has outpaced infrastructure and public services, creating challenges with traffic congestion, school overcrowding, and strained utilities. While these issues don't directly affect home prices, they impact livability and long-term community appeal. Potential buyers should consider that the city's rapid expansion may slow down as these growing pains continue, potentially putting further pressure on real estate values. In 2025, Boise's overheated market, combined with economic and infrastructure concerns, make it the riskiest place to buy a house in the country. Conclusion. So there you have it, the 10 worst cities to buy a house in 2025. From overvalued markets like Boise and Austin to climate-threatened areas like New Orleans and Miami, each of these cities comes with its own unique set of risks. Whether it's unaffordable prices, economic uncertainty, environmental threats, or declining quality of life, these are places where the cost of buying a home may far outweigh the potential rewards, especially in the short term. Now, this doesn't mean these cities are bad places to live or that every neighborhood within them is a poor investment. But when it comes to putting your money into real estate in 2025, caution is key. Always look beyond the headlines and hype, study local trends, assess your financial goals, and make sure the numbers truly make sense before taking the plunge. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the housing market, smart places to buy, and tips for navigating today's complex real estate landscape. Let us know in the comments, are you surprised by any cities on this list? Are you currently house hunting in one of them or avoiding them altogether? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.